Ochoa. Hello, everyone. Welcome to round 6 of Grand Prix Vancouver. I'm Brian David Marshall here with Pro Tour Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, and we're watching Eric Froelich and David Ochoa, the 15th and 17th ranked players in the world, squaring off here at 5-0 apiece.
Should be a good one.
David Ochoa is led off with a Mutavault, while Eric Froelich plays the hallmark of the Blue Devotion deck, the Cloudfin Raptor.
How do you feel about attack from Ochoa? Is he on Blue Devotion as well?
How do you feel about Mutavault, the Mutavault lead off, and to be able to get into? How big a deal is that 2 points when you're playing a game like this?
I mean, this format, this particular matchup. I mean, I think David probably knows this is a mirror, right?
I believe.
I haven't seen a deck list yet, but I think David's also playing the Blue Devotion deck. And on a mulligan to 6. I mean, with mulligan to 6, he's. If he can turn it into sort of a beatdown race, then maybe being down that card doesn't matter. So, I mean, I think it's a little bit better when you're down that card. And he also probably saw the 2 Mutavaults in his hand, so he knows that brings that line a little more into play. I'm never sure. Attacking with Mutavaults that early, and it's Nightvale Specter's the card that punishes you for this. I mean, if David's only got 1 island, then sure, why not? Because it's... if Eric had taken a turn off to play Mutavault, he obviously wouldn't be able to play turn 3 Nightvale Specter. Okay, Jace from Ochoa. It's a pretty solid start for Eric.
Jace is going to get big. Yep. Jace, Architect of Thought. So it's all the creatures get -1 when attacking David Ochoa or his Planeswalkers.
And so Eric can get 3 damage onto Jace right now?
Yeah, I mean, more importantly, maybe he can just get a card off of Nightvale Specter if he just sends it at...
maybe you hit Jace for 2 and Nightvale Specter goes in for a card?
Yeah, I think...
Nightvale Specter's going to go in for the card. That's worth more than 1 loyalty counter. But yeah, I mean, Jace's ability definitely slows down the beats.
Frostborn Weird. Keep getting that Cloudfin Raptor bigger. He has not missed an opportunity to evolve it yet.
It's a nice curve for Eric. Turn 2, turn 3, turn 4. Yeah, I think I hit Jace for 3 and David for 1.
And that's what it looks like is happening.
Yeah.
Leaving the familiar back.
Well, it deals 0.
Oh, yeah. I always think that's a 2-1.
That card would be ridiculous.
Yeah, yes, obviously.
I mean, that multiple Pro Tour winning Judges familiar, even as a 1-1. Think about how many Pro Tours it would have won as a 2-1.
There's a Temple of Triumph.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what I think David playing the blue-white-red control?
And that's what I'm suspecting
based
on that land.
I've definitely seen some of the Channel Fireball guys running blue-white-red control. Yeah, that's a deck I messed around with a little bit at the beginning of the format. It's kind of fun if you like to play control and have the grip full of instants. But the thing is, you've got.
Look at that beautiful old Last Breath.
I'm not sure anything about Mercadian Masks is beautiful. I don't know if I would want the Mercadian Masks version. There's Tempest Islands he's running to. It's his Beta versus Tempest. I forget where the Lightning Island is from. Maybe it's either Saga or Tempest, something around there.
Yeah.
But so what are the cards Eric's splitting? We saw a Last Breath.
I saw a Last Breath and
something blue.
Then something borrowed.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric's trolling us by shielding the cards from our view.
Divination. Divination, land, Last Breath.
Wow.
Seems like the right split, although that land is pretty valuable. I don't know if do you want to put the white mana with the Last Breath?
Could you have gone land two cards? Or I guess he thinks maybe David is...
Yeah, I mean, land Last Breath seems like the easy take there. I mean, he kind of did split it 2 cards, if you think about it. Devotion.
Yeah.
Divination is 2 cards. But giving him the white mana and the Last Breath seems slightly suboptimal. Maybe that's the best split available. It's a pretty good flip from David's perspective. All right, so that Jace is clearly going to die on Eric's turn. He flipped it for cards rather than shrinking everybody.
Is that a Guild Gate? Yes, I believe that's an Azorius Guild
Speaking of Born of the Gods cards that David will be happy to get his hands on, Guild Gate needs to turn into Temple of whatever the blue-white temple is.
Yes. It's Temple of Jensen, I think it's called.
Temple of Jensen, Temple of Cuneo, come on.
So he just Jaces into Jace.
Oh, fair enough. This one, oh, and draws cards.
So he gets to go 6 cards deep in his deck this game. Oh,
He's not about to die. I mean, I assume that list from Sphinxes runs Supreme Verdict, so that's the play. He's got to find 2 white mana for Supreme Verdict. Is that what's going on, probably? All right, so Detention Sphere, is that Pithing Needle? No, that's the
Elixir of Immortality.
Elixir of Immortality. Versus Elspeth.
Yeah. So he's drawn 4 cards this turn.
Now, if he's only got the 1 Elixir, is he obliged to take Elixir there?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it goes to the bottom with Jace, not the graveyard, of course.
We saw that happen in the Huey match.
That makes sense. Bident.
Blah.
Blah. Yeah, he's correct. That is precisely the way Eric beats any potential Supreme Verdict shenanigans. Yeah, this is one of the reasons a Blue Devotion deck is so resilient. I mean, on the one hand, it's an aggro deck that isn't as fast as the true aggro decks, but it's got so much resiliency and so much late game power. And it's really Bident that pushes it over the top in the control matchup. You know, David is just, he's tapping out, he's trying to set up, he's like, I'll wipe the board with Supreme Verdict, and then I can gain control.
Like, okay.
It's like, I'll draw 3. And every dork I play for the rest of the game is an Ophidian. That is hard for the control deck to stabilize against. I mean, David's got a grip full of cards at this point. He got 4 new ones last turn. Okay, so we have deck lists. Yeah, David is mostly blue-white. He's got Counterflux. Is it the only red card in his main deck? Am I missing anything? Yeah, it's blue-white with just a touch of red.
So he's playing a very similar deck to what we saw from
Huey.
From Huey, yeah.
Yeah, so he's touching red, which lets him play Counterflux as his counterspell, and also lets him sideboard Assemble the Legion. That's basically it for his red splash. So basically blue-white control.
So he casts Divination.
Yeah, I mean, the true sort of blue-white-red control decks, I don't know, true. The more red ones, the ones that were floating around at the beginning of the format would run like War Leader's Helix as one of their key removal spells. It's like gaining the life is nice when you're killing a creature. Problem is just, there's so much 5 toughness floating around the format. You can't kill a demon. You know, there's a lot of things you just can't kill with 4 damage. So that's why Esper really kicked the blue-white-red out of the format.
Yeah. Ochoa is just trying to figure out what course of action he can take. He has to go to
Pays
7 here on a Steam event, yeah.
He's got, and discards a land.
It's gross. Still doesn't have double white.
Right. He doesn't survive this attack without a...
We know he has the last breath for the Night Veil Spectre, but I don't even think that matters.
I mean, Eric is threatening a lethal attack, activating Mutavault. Now, does Last Breath... It's still a lethal attack, isn't it? You Last Breath a 2-power guy.
And then you just pump Frostburn.
Oh, yeah, Frostburn weird. I think this attack, he needs more than 1 trick. He can activate Mutavault, block, and then use the mana for Last Breath.
Sure.
And that stops 2 things. So I guess Mutavault has to step in front of Frostburn weird, right?
So he can... And
again, then he can Last Breath something.
And all you're going to get to Last Breath is Judge's Familiar, because he has to tap out to do it.
Last Breath will kill Judge's Familiar. in which case you take 2, 4, in which case you're dead.
Here's the last breath of Mutavault.
Yeah, Eric's not going to miss Judge's Familiar. And that does it. Yep. Yeah, the only way David even survives that attack is if Eric misses the Judge's Familiar sack.
Right. And we know it's not something that's very likely to happen.
And I think that's exactly why you see them smiling. I mean, David's like, I got to try, right? Didn't expect it to work. No disrespect intended.
And it's not even a matter of like you think maybe someone will miss it. Sometimes you think maybe
Did I get you? Yes.
they want you to make that play, so you're like, yeah, I want to make the other play, and I don't know, maybe you
on that board in that case
like
that would count as missing
thinking,
it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think it mattered. Not with Biden's like.
Yeah. Like even if Ochoa had a free supreme verdict that turn.
Right, he still loses.
He just loses.
Absolutely.
He's just down so many cards. These guys just ripping into their sideboards. Interesting card here for in Eric's sideboard.
The Curse of the Swine. I never know what to think of that card.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm going to die to the 2/2s. I just grew up on a steady diet of card advantage.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that the 4 gainsays are much more likely to come in than anything else here. Although both of these players have 4 gainsays in their board.
Yeah, I mean, I think this matchup, the Blue Devotion versus any of the various control flavors, Blue Devotion tends to make itself more control-ish after sideboarding.
Yeah.
I mean, that just tends to be the way that this matchup plays out, right? You bring in gainsays, you bring in a lot of sort of reactive cards, really.
Right.
So what's Eric's got? There you see, good look at Eric, yeah.
Eric's got the gainsays. He's got negate, spell, dissolves.
Yeah, three Pro Tour top 8s, 9 GP top 8s, 3rd in the Player of the Year race. He had a really good year last year where he got 3rd.
You put a lot, when you're looking at Hall of Fame careers and stuff, you put a lot of stock in that.
Player of the Year finish?
In the Player of the Year finish. Not just Player of the Year, but like where people finished in the Player of the Year race for multiple seasons.
Absolutely. No, you put up multiple top 5s in the Player of the Year race. I definitely think that's a big deal. I mean, it's tough to know how to value Grand Prix points in that. Like before there was a cap on the number of Grand Prix you could play, you could tend to see some players would just, the players who had the World Traveler lifestyle would just tend to accumulate a few more pro points. So, I particularly put a lot of stock in it when it's not somebody who's playing 30 GPs a year.
Right.
Which is again Eric. Yeah, I mean, I feel like how many results would it take to get Eric into the Hall of Fame conversation? Not that many, right?
One more top 8.
PT top 8.
One more PT top 8. I think he's in the conversation.
Right, he's on the fringe for put up another result or two and then we'll talk about it.
He's like when you start drawing up your ballot, you certainly sketch him into that pool of candidates.
I do.
Then you get a look at David Ochoa. David Ochoa was 1 Pro Tour top 8 that he got in Seattle last year.
Sure.
Or 2 years ago now at this point. National team 2011, 5 Grand Prix top 8s. We talk about that traveler lifestyle. This is the guy, he loves going to Grand Prix. He loves being in the cities that the Grand Prix are in and really taking advantage of that whole experience.
I don't know how many of you guys follow him on Twitter, but you really get a sampling of the food for the host city. Yes. He's maybe the biggest foodie on the tour. He's up there.
He's up there.
I mean, who's ahead of him?
I mean, I would quibble, but
with
me.
You don't seem to take how much. You don't do enough research to rival him. You just show up in what's good and what's here.
Yeah.
Maybe you heard about something, but
I have my targets generally.
Fair. Yeah, but he definitely will tour what the culinary aspects of the host cities.
We were a little shocked. Just speaking of food, I think we were both a little shocked to have our Otoro world rocked.
It's true. One of the highlights of the Japanese events we've traveled to over the years, definitely the O-Toro, O being the Japanese honorific for high and mighty and exalted.
And fattiest.
Right. The translation the first time we saw it in a menu, it was there's tuna, there's fatty tuna, and there's fattiest tuna. Yes, the O-Toro.
And normally, sashimi style or sushi style, you eat it raw. But at this restaurant, Miku, here in Vancouver, which is a very highly regarded sushi restaurant, they do a little bit of a sear.
Yeah, it was crazy.
With a blowtorch on the sushi. What is that, a ruby style?
Resembling cooking? A buri style.
A buri style. I was flipping my letters there, yeah. All right, we're underway here. We'll talk about sushi more later.
How many rounds we got left before we can go back?
So you talked about Eric Froelich going to a more control-y version.
That's what I would expect, yeah.
So, no, maybe sides out his one drops, you think, to make room for some of
them, for sure.
Some of those counter spells. David Ochoa cycles an Azorius Charm at the end of the turn on top of the Tidebinder Mage. And passes the turn with no third land.
That's too bad. Both these games have been kind of lopsided. Thassa, no.
Thassa gets gainsayed. Nice old
guy. Invasion gainsay.
I like that gainsay a lot.
I do too. I mean, if you can say no to Urza, it must be a powerful mage, right?
He's like, okay, I'll go to 24.
Eric thinks about it. Is he telegraphing or bluffing? Yeah. I don't care if he had the ability to stop that last breath. Having a window open to play Thassa seems very nice here. I mean, it's not game over because David's plan is essentially keep her turned off by dealing with all the other creatures, but just the scry ability. He's just going to play a long game, and Eric's deck, we expect it to be sideboarded into a more control-ish deck. Yeah. So now he's got inevitability with the scry from Thassa. If David can't build up the lands to threaten Sphinx's Revelation in order to keep up with cards, this game shouldn't last too long.
Ooh.
3 with
aggro Frostborn, weird.
Oh, he doesn't want to commit that many creatures to the board, right? I mean, I have that many creatures. 2 mana left. Oh, interesting. So David more interested in cycling Azorius Charm than putting Frostborn Weird on top, even after
he just needs lands.
Right. Makes sense. I mean, it's obviously because he wants to dig for lands. But still, like, putting Frostborn Weird on top, not taking 3, making him recast it, kind of gives you a draw phase. Like, Time Walk digs for lands, too. Well, that one stayed on top with the Scryland.
Hey, Eric Froelich is scrying him a river here. It's just demoralized. I feel like there's people who would play Thassa if it had no ability other than just scry 1 every turn.
Wow, 3 pumps. Eric gets for 4. This is how you played around Wrath of God with, like, Pump Knights way back in the days. Like, Fallen Empires or Ice Age Pump Knights. Like, don't put 2 of them on the board. Just pump the first one. Make them cast the Wrath of God before you commit a second creature to the board.
You really see the guild gates kind of...
They're not good. Really not good.
It's giving you no option.
Yep, there's the Bident. So he waited for David... Eric runs this out. He can't defend it with 1 mana. Interesting. Last breath.
Well, he doesn't want Thassa turning on here, right?
Oh no, I understand the last breath.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wondering if that was the right turn for Eric to play the Bident.
Yeah.
It's certainly nice to turn on Thassa, and certainly nice to draw cards, but David had 2 mana untapped, so he could gainsay it. He Frostburn Weird. I mean, I guess Eric's out of lands. So I mean, he can't probably just 6th land Bident with at least threatening gainsay. Would have been a lot scarier for David. Maybe Eric's real play was to set this turn up. Because Eric has a negate in his hand. It's the other control card from his sideboard. Now here's Tidebinder Mage turning on Thassa. Last breath. You negate that, right?
I mean, I think so. I mean, David's at 11.
Hitting for 5 and drawing a card. It's like any counterspell is effectively a cantrip here. If it means you get to hit with Thassa.
Yeah, exactly. You get to get it back
because of the Bident. I would negate this.
Yeah, you could dissolve and scry.
Okay, sure. If I also had to dissolve, I would dissolve. Because it spends his mana more efficiently. Can't do anything with having 1 leftover mana. Oh, yeah. Yeah, David is not long for this world. How many Bidens does Eric run? 2 main, 0 in the board.
So just one more in the board.
Yeah, Ochoa uses his elixir. He's going to shuffle his graveyard back in. wouldn't mind drawing last breaths at this point.
I mean, is he thrilled? He's not thrilled
Wants
with
the
it
5
either.
life.
Again, I mean, Eric's hand is just full, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, David stops at 2 lands for a while, and he's the control player. That alone is a very uphill climb. I mean, Eric had a control-ish draw, not a beatdown draw.
Right.
So that gave David the time to draw into some lands and actually get some semblance of a game going. But it's such an uphill climb. I think Eric's on 4 cards, looks like. Active Thassa, active Biden.
Like even what Supreme Verdict, like any sorcery speed removal of the Tidebinder Mage isn't even going to slow Thassa down.
Probably not. Which way do you chase?
Cards too, you know.
What cards, right? Yeah.
Saving 2 damage isn't going to win him the game.
So Supreme Verdict, Last Breath, and a land.
4 cards.
Supreme Verdict does so little on this board.
What's that?
Supreme Verdict does so little on this board. It's funny. Eric and Dad says the Last Breath is better than the Supreme Verdict. It's cheaper and it's an instant. But David takes Supreme Verdict and a land.
Pushes a card, sees a fresh one. Sends Mage at Jace and Thassa at David.
Yeah, makes sense. David would prefer to keep his Jace around and turn off Thassa, thus saving 5 damage in a card.
Right, you get to knock both creatures out of combat here.
Totally negate this. Like, this is why you side into the controller's version, is so that you can say, no, sorry. I prefer Jace goes away, and you take 5, and I draw a card.
Right.
It's pretty good for 1U.
Yeah.
I don't know how much permission Eric has left, but
A less
The
than
shrug.
Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, less than, there you go. Ochoa is almost, I guess, I'll kill a Tidebinder Mage.
And
You
now it's
don't
just
have
like
anything left in your hand, do you?
just play a 2-drop, a 2 blue card and attack and. Yep, Night Veil Spectre. Getcha.
Charm? Eric might be out of permission spells, right?
He's been crafting his top card of his
no,
library the whole game.
I would totally believe that he has a gainsay, and he does have a gainsay.
Ochoa goes to 1.
Yeah.
Oh, and I draw a card.
Why?
So like he needs like Supreme Verdict, Detention Sphere, Thassa. Is that like his only play here?
If I had a Detention Sphere, I might hit the Bident on this board. It makes Thassa harder to turn on, and
So
like
Supreme
I'd
Verdict.
rather let my opponent scry than draw cards. Okay,
Okay, well,
there's
there's
step
part 1.
1.
Yeah.
Kill Night Veil Spectre. Which does turn off Thassa for now, but any creature will turn on Thassa. Any creature is lethal unless any resolved creature is lethal.
Yep.
And Ochoa's got enough mana up that he could also.
We know there's a dissolve. Yep.
Can't imagine.
And
he
the
has
Mutavault.
answers to both of
Yeah.
those. There's the hand. Yeah. David Ochoa not really happy with how that played out. Didn't really get to play a lot of Magic. Spent a fair amount of time fighting, but
Yeah.
starting out that far behind.
It's kind
Not
of
fun.
like stepping out onto a patch of ice, and you're just kind of like your feet
Slipping.
are just like slipping out
like,
from under you.
I might not fall. Hold
Yeah.
on. Wait. Oh, crash.
Even when you finally get your footing, you haven't gone anywhere.
So Eric gets to 6-0. One more win to clinch day 2, but right now that's not what he's thinking about. He's thinking about 2 or 3 more wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be in good shape for a top 8 run. And David's fine. 5-1, 2-1 in games played, in matches actually played. Probably still feels okay. Had a tough opponent there and some pretty bad draws.
Yeah, I think Ochoa mulliganed both those games. But now we're going to switch over and take a look at Josh Ravitz on your right, who's sending in looks like an army of Elspeth tokens at a Jace. Architect of Thought. That's kind of an unusual opportunity, but I guess his opponent drew some cards.
His opponent's clearly a Blue Devotion player sitting with a Bident in play, but that's it. A couple of Mutavaults buried amongst his lands, but they're not going to be good at attacking through. Yeah.
Ultimate Elspeth, let's go.
I assume that must be the match.
Right.
We saw the handshake and
he's
the rest
using
of the deck being revealed.
I didn't have all these face.
Yeah, this
as
is
he
like
flips cards off the top of his
like
deck.
draw a card, draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. It's funny.
Well, Josh revealed his hand. That's also like Magic Online.
Oh, right. So Josh's opponent, Shahar Senhar, Blue Devotion player, was